Ever start reading about some historical event, and get this weird feeling like, wait, this is strangely familiar.
Mm.
Happened to me with the 1918 flu stuff. So much of it mirrors what we've been through.
It's like, to understand now, we almost need to look back.
Right, exactly. And that's what hooked me on this book, Crimes of the Centuries. You think, okay, famous crimes, but Amber Hunt, she digs up these lesser-known stories, but the impact, huge. Murders, witch hunts, poisonings.
But with twists, let me tell you. It's the unexpected outcomes that make it.
Right, like who'd think a 1799 murder would be relevant now?
Well, think again, because this Elma Sands case, Alexander Hamilton was the defense attorney.
No way.
Yeah, and it's not just who was involved, but the legal tactics. We still see him today because of that case.
Seriously.
Jury nullification, that whole idea that a jury can say not guilty even if they think the person did it, big time came out of the Sands trial.
So like Law and Order stuff, but centuries ago.
Law builds on itself.
Yeah.
What happened then echoes in courtrooms now, and Hunt connects it all.
And sometimes it's not even in the courtroom where the fight happens.
Yeah.
Think about the Radium Girls. Glowing paint, but then awful deaths. Tragic, but it sparked change.
Imagine your teeth just disintegrating. That was radium poisoning. The book doesn't hold back, but it makes you see the cost of progress when nobody's watching out for people.
Awful.
It wasn't just radium, though. Workplace safety, workers' rights, those women, what they went through, they made things better for everyone coming after.
They did, and it shows. Progress doesn't just come from laws, right? It's people pushing for what's right, even when it's hard.
And speaking of public opinion, this book got me thinking about how the media shapes everything, even in crime.
Oh, for sure. Always has.
Yeah.
Like Evelyn Nesbit, turn-of-the-century actress, love triangle, murder,
Right.
total media frenzy back then, just like some cases now.
And those old scandals, they still grab us. This book talks about how the murder victim, his bedroom was all mirrors, scandalous then, but it also shows we've always been obsessed with, like, the lives and deaths of the rich and famous. Makes you wonder, how much does that influence how we see justice? Like, if the victim is less famous, does the crime matter less?
Good point. And it makes you think about all those cases that don't get the same attention, where justice, well, it's delayed or worse.
Yeah.
Like the Osage murders, that whole story just shows how greed and prejudice can be deadly.
Inherit oil wealth, then bam, people start getting picked off. That's what happened to the Osage people. Hunt doesn't just tell the crime, she shows how easily some lives were dismissed, like they didn't matter enough for justice to be a priority.
It's chilling. And honestly, it's not just history. We still see that, how power can hide things, make some people untouchable.
Absolutely, and Hunt forces us to see that, the ugly parts of how justice actually works, not how it's supposed to. Makes you uncomfortable, but that's the point.
For sure. And then there are cases that just seem to happen over and over. The Scottsboro boys, falsely accused, young, black. The system was against them from day one.
And the fight for justice. Decades. It's inspiring they never gave up, but also heartbreaking that it took that long.
There's this photo, one of the boys, just a kid really, and the look on his face is defeat. Those details in the book, they stay with you.
She brings it to life, that's for sure. And those individual stories, that's what makes history real, not just dates and names.
It's like you read this stuff and part of you wants to think, oh, we're so much more woke now, right? But then
you realize some things, they just keep happening.
Exactly. And we miss it because it's got a different disguise on, like Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
We all know that was messed up, but the book digs into just how bad things were back then, especially for women.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just, oh, she's a witch. Take Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, two of the first accused. Already outcasts, easy targets. Hunt argues their accusations were less about actual witchcraft, more like...
More like what?
Think. Property disputes, personal grudges. The patriarchy at work,
Wow. So a recipe for disaster. Fear, religion, and suddenly, anyone different is the enemy. Makes you wonder, what are the witch hunts of today that we're missing?
Right. That's the scary thought the book leaves you with. We love to think we're above that, but...
Are we?
Scapegoating, finding someone to blame instead of dealing with bigger problems.
It's still happening. Okay, so shifting gears a bit before we get too depressed. Early 1900s, the Stanford White murder, now that was a scandal. Love triangle, jealous husband, beautiful actor.
Oh yeah, the Harry Thaw case. But it wasn't just juicy gossip. That one, it said a lot about how people then saw women, sex, even the whole temporary insanity plea.
Which is still around, by the way.
Exactly. But then it was new. And Evelyn Nesbit, the actress, Tragic figure. Hunt talks about how she was a victim in all this, but also used by the men around her.
That was way too often, even now.
It does, and you see it throughout the book, how women, their roles, expectations, it's all tied into both causing and solving crimes.
Totally. And here's another layer, the media. Back then it was newspapers going crazy, but now it's
Social media, instant everything, but the effect's the same. Hunt actually traces how coverage changed things, from those old scandalous newspapers to new tech. We're still figuring it out, aren't we? Like, how do you report on this stuff responsibly? How much influence should the media even have on trials?
it's like a plus change, right? The more things change.
The more they stay the same.
Exactly. But sometimes things change because of these big cases, right? Like forensics. The book talks about how some truly awful crimes, they also push science forward.
It's grim, but true. The Pearl Bryan case, for example, her body, it was awful, headless. But that led to them using footwear, like shoe prints, to catch the guy. Sometimes it takes something terrible to make us try something new.
True. But even then, it's not always progress, is it? Like some cases make you wonder if justice is even the goal anymore.
Oh, that's what makes this book so good. It doesn't pretend it's simple. Hunt shows you how messy the system is. Wins and losses, all of it.
Like Kirk Bloodsworth. First guy exonerated from death row because of DNA. Amazing, but also how many people didn't get that chance before DNA before?
That makes you think, right? Bloodsworth, it's hopeful, but also shows how easy it is to get it wrong. We need to keep pushing for better, a system that cares about the truth more than anything else.
Totally. And sadly, for every Bloodsworth, there are people we never hear about, especially when you add in race, money, all the stuff Hunt talks about.
Yeah, you can't separate these crimes from the world they happened in, can you? Who has power, who doesn't? It influences everything.
And who gets ignored, right?
Yeah.
The Radium Girls, the Osage murderers, Scottsboro boys, even Salem.
Yeah.
It's always someone vulnerable getting exploited. Makes you sick, but we gotta see to fix it. I mean, it's a lot, right? But the book, it's not all doom and gloom. You see people fighting back, even when it seems impossible. That's inspiring.
Absolutely. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, oh man, that one gets you.
Over 100 people, mostly young women, trapped because the exits were locked.
Awful. And it sparked a movement. People took to the streets, demanding change, better conditions. It's a reminder that even from tragedy, good can come. Sometimes that's what it takes to shake things up.
And the effects of that, we still see them. Workers' rights, safety, all of it. Those people paid a price, but it made things better for everyone else.
It's true. And it makes you think about those other cases, right? The ones that didn't get that big response, where people are still fighting.
Are the ones we don't even hear about, like you're saying, those unheard stories.
It's humbling and a little scary. I think Hunt wants us to sit with that. We all have a responsibility to pay attention, to speak up when we see something wrong, especially for those who can't.
It's not enough to just know this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It has to change how we act.
Exactly. Otherwise, what's the point? We can do better, but it takes action. That's what we learn from all this, from these crimes, from history.
Speaking of which, there's one more case. It's hard to talk about, but so important, especially here in the U.S. Emmett Till.
That case. It just lays bare how awful racism is, how it was allowed to thrive. A young boy, lynched. Hunt doesn't sugarcoat it, and it's impossible to read that and not feel the anger, the need for things to be different.
It reminds us we haven't moved past any of it. Not really.
Right. These aren't just stories, they're echoes. What happened then, it shapes now. The fight for equality, for justice, it's still happening.
So what do we do with all this? It's a lot to take in, and I imagine some listeners are, well, overwhelmed.
I get it. But Hunt gives us a roadmap, in a way. Think critically. Don't be a passive observer of history. Be part of shaping it. See the patterns, the injustices, even the ways we might be contributing, even accidentally.
Being aware is the first step, right?
It's a step. Then comes action. We learn about this not just to feel bad, but to do better. That's how we honor what happened, those crimes, those lives, by making a world where they make a difference.
Kind of said it better myself. We've covered a lot in this deep dive: murder, scandals, the justice system, how it fails, and those who fought back. But this is just a taste of what's in Crimes of the Centuries. If you want a book that makes you think, that sticks with you. I can't recommend it enough.